What happens if you build a life around heading outside every single day, no matter what? I'm Amy Bouchat, and you're listening to the Humans Outside Weekly Outdoor Diary, where I share with you my own insights from heading into nature every single day for at least 20 minutes, no matter the weather. What did I learn, hear, see, and experience this week as I take on the Humans Outside 365 Challenge? Come along for my insights and, yes, my more than occasional fails. This is my real life, after all. Are you ready? Let's go. I was invited recently to tell a short, no more than 7-minute story as part of a local live story time in Anchorage called Trail Tales. And since you know these outdoor diary episodes are about that length, that wasn't a huge stretch for me. I had such fun at the event, I thought I'd share the same story here as this week's outdoor diary. As an aside, I was totally bowled over to meet a few podcast listeners at the Trail Tales event. I can't even tell you how special and exciting it is running into the listeners in the wild, if you will. You know, I record this in my closet in my house. I have to use my imagination to believe anyone is listening at all. Thanks to everyone who said hi. So, this is a story about what happens when you step outside your comfort zone and head into the wilds of risk, such as staying up way past your bedtime. The first thing you have to know about me is that I don't do things at night. And by night, I mean anything that takes me out at my house after, say, 7 p.m. is probably a no. For the people who heard this story at Trail Tales, that might have been confusing because it was well after 7 p.m. at the event, a solid hour away from my house. Yes, it was a major stretch for me. I am that old, at least in my mind. The next thing you need to know is that I love my comfort zone and I really don't like risk. I prefer to go to the same restaurant each time we go out, and I almost always order the same thing, low risk. I take the same walks, I go on the same trails. Wandering outside my comfort zone seems risky, and I don't like that. But I also love adventures and exploring Alaska. That's because not doing so is a different kind of risk I'm also not okay with. The risk that I'll never see this beautiful place or experience its wilds. Which is why last year I decided to take on the Resurrection Pass 100-mile race. I had been on trail just enough to know that it was a place worth seeing in its entirety. Now you might be thinking, Amy, you're a nut roll. You know you can just backpack it, right? You could hike it over several days. Running 100 miles is entirely unnecessary. And to that I say, well, yeah, but I'm a runner. So, a little bit about Resurrection Pass. Backpacker Magazine named it the top backpacking trail in the state, and I can't argue with that. The trail goes from point to point, starting in Hope or Cooper Landing. It's 39 miles long. There's a midpoint access trail down Devil's Pass. The race goes from Hope to Cooper Landing, back up towards Hope, down and up Devil's Pass before proceeding all the way back to Hope. It gains about 10,000 feet in the process, and it is unbelievably beautiful. Now, this race starts at 3 p.m., which means that no matter how it shakes out, it is an overnight experience. And remember what I said just a minute ago about not doing things that go past my bedtime? Well, this is a big stretch for me. It was also a distance I had never before run on a trail I had never before done. It was my first time on a trail after dark. It was my first time ever in my entire whole life staying up all night. I know that sounds insane. And because I like to do even risky things the safe way, I hired a coach to help me train for it and did everything I could to prepare. I practiced eating snacks because we all know snacks are the most important part of any adventure. So I knew loosely what I was getting into when I crossed the start line at 3 p.m. on that sunny July day. I knew there would be miles and hills and challenges, but what I found was more than that. It was realizing that if you never step outside your comfort zone and take the risk, you'll never see what I saw on the Resurrection Pass Trail in the early morning light. So at 3 p.m. on that race day, we crossed the start line. My friends and I ran up from the Hope side about 20 miles to the top of Resurrection Pass, then down over the alpine tundra. We hit the end of the glassy Juneau Lake about 8 miles from the other side of the trail, just as it was getting really dark, around midnight. Then wound down to Cooper Landing, the trail's other side, where we picked up more snacks before heading back up towards Juneau Lake. The temperature dipped and we slowed down. Not great for keeping a race pace up, but perfect for seeing what I witnessed next. Because as we trekked across the area of the 2019 Swan Lake wildfire, where the trees and terrain were black and burned out, we saw the fireweed, a wildflower that grows in burnout zones, and it was green and pink and purple. And as the sun started to spread that alpenglow across the mountains, it hit the field of fireweed just so. And as the sun rose onto Juneau Lake, the clouds reflected against the water in that golden morning light. It was about 5 a.m., and I was in a spot I never would have visited and never, ever would have seen had I stayed home or done what I usually do at 5 a.m.